And we are live with no one watching, so it's all good. Welcome, welcome. Yes, I shaved. And yes, it really is that stupid looking. So put in the comments, what do you guys want to start with? We got all sorts of stuff. I guess one down, one to go. I have the reel or gone. Like, what the fuck? So we can talk about the reel. We can do the Tackle Warehouse unboxing. We can talk about the rod that is going back tomorrow, or not. So I guess we'll start with the rod since no one's in here actually watching, and I'm going to use this footage later. This is the St. Croix MOJO Bass. Come on, focus. Yeah, it doesn't want to focus. MOJO Bass spinnerbait rod. So there's a single piece, 7-foot, medium heavy, moderate fast action rod, and beautifully constructed. When you talk about rods that are properly made for their price point with good components, this is a prime example. The only complaint I had in terms of construction is, oops, I'm banging my other monitor. These guides are basic aluminum oxide inserts, and they're not anything special as guides in general. Like, the overall quality level they picked could have been better. I have seen better on rods that are $50 cheaper. And I feel like that's a common thing with St. Croix. They're always a step behind. For a given price point, their guides, their reel seats are just a little behind. But otherwise, good stuff. And don't get me wrong, for the role of this rod, this is a spinnerbait rod. You can use it as a crankbait rod. It's a little heavy for that, but smaller swim baits, you don't need great guides. You really don't. I mean, you're not going to have subtle bites, right? That's not a thing. But people multi-purpose rods. People use them for lots of things. And I feel like, them saving a couple dollars by using the cheaper guides is it's an insult. It's just a fuck you to the customer. We wanted to keep our money and not give you full value. But on the other hand, they have glassed this in. They have epoxied this whole thing beautifully. So there is a layer of epoxy all along this graphite, blending in the butt with the back of the handle, and then the front of the reel seat all the way up to there, basically. And then each guide is wrapped in and epoxied, double epoxied. They doubled it, did it twice. And it's all very nicely done. Like, the actual work was done very well. The cork is very nice. It's a decent grade of cork. It's not cheap shit. But when you actually compare in use this to something significantly cheaper? Can't tell. You just can't. I mean, does it feel a little nicer in the hand? Sure. But if you're paying attention to that on your rod when you're fishing, don't get me wrong. If the money is absolutely no object, great rod. I mean, if you want a dedicated spinnerbait rod or a smaller swim bait rod, perfectly fine. Great rod. If you're like me and you were looking for a rod to use for spinnerbaits, small swim baits, and crankbaits, overkill. More money than it needs to be spent for something that is not good enough. The fit and finish is excellent, but the actual sensitivity of the rod, the feel of the rod in use, like the action of the rod, nothing special. My advice if you were shopping is to go bigger, meaning, spend more money, or go cheaper. I think that for the role this rod is trying to do, pick which side of it you want to be on. If you're trying to be the medium heavy action swim bait or heavier spinnerbait rod, go that direction. If you're trying to be a crankbait lighter spinnerbait rod, go that direction. And there are rods for half as much that will do either of those jobs just as well as this one does. They're just not going to be quite as pretty. You can't see it, but this is a beautiful, deep. I mean, calling it purple is almost an insult. It's like a hint of purple in the black. It is really pretty in the sun. So yeah, I mean, if you've got an unlimited budget, great, but I still wouldn't pick this one. I would go, 200, 250. I would go up to some of the nicer G Loomis, even an Avid X, if you want to stick with St. Croix. But I don't think this is any better in actual use on the water than my Carbon Light 2, my Bass Pro Johnny Morris Carbon Light 2. Those are 120, 129, depending on which one. And they don't look as pretty. They are white with wind grips and a more basic skeletonized reel seat. Not all the fancy, extras, but it works great. And it's got upgraded guides. They're like a half step better than these. So, I also have issues. Oops. These are pretty lightweight guides for the intended function of this rod. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Everybody's going for super light. This is a rod that is going to be throwing lures where people are going to be doing massive hook sets. They're going to be throwing relatively heavy baits. And these guides are pretty flimsy, to be honest. They're fine if this was a worm rig, if this was a purely crankbait rig. But for something somebody's going to use a big single hook lure with, I'm not impressed. But yeah, overall, I think it's well done. Like I said, I don't think it's worth the money and is the right mix of things. And I think what St. Croix did is they had a group of rods, and this was just one of several, and those things work better in the other rods. Whereas in this one, they're lacking because of what this rod is designed to do. So it is what it is. I do think it's interesting that for the price of this rod, you can buy all the equipment and materials needed to make this rod. A blank similar to this, all the same guides, reel seat, and everything else, and the supplies to do it comes to about $180. You will have enough supplies to do another rod. You won't have the blank and the handle and everything else, but you will have like the epoxy and thread and all that to do another rod. So you could do another rod for like 115 at the same level. Just saying, nice weekend project, right? So for a good laugh, this is what replaced it. This is $29 at Walmart. It was listed for 31, but when I got to the register, it came up as 29. This is basically a Lew's crankbait rod, and it's a cheap, generic rod. There's nothing special about this rod. It is a medium power, fast action. And they say fast, I say moderate fast. I'm not sure. And, as always with these cheaper rods, they're pretty parabolic. But it's an IM8 blank, not an IM6, not an IM4 or anything like that. And I mean, it's just decently made. I think it was interesting that unlike the other rod, I've got a completely open area here to the blank. So if I'm palming, oops, hitting my fan, which luckily is off. If I'm palming that reel, oops, okay. I don't normally do this with my left hand. I'm normally a righty. But if I'm palming that reel, my fingers are on the blank. This line is in the way and I'm trying not to hit things. But my fingers are on the blank, not part of one finger. I've got multiple fingers directly on the blank. Oh my God, here. I mean, that's a big difference, right? That's a huge difference compared to the other rod. Now, I mean, does it really matter? Is it not as strong because you don't have the contact between both halves of the reel seat? Do I care? Not really. I'm not catching giant bass. I'm not catching giant anything. The handle is not as nice. It's hard EVA. The butt is not as nice. But they give you a cork on the actual final butt. It's that synthetic rubberized cork, but whatever. Again, in use, you don't notice most of this stuff. Like I would notice if there was a rough patch on the front of this trigger here. I would notice that, but there isn't. It's nicely rounded in texture. I would notice if there was a hard transition, with a ridge here. Now there's a little bit of a ridge, but it's kind of soft, it's not going to bother me. It's not going to eat into a spot on my palm. The guides are physically tougher. They are a heavier material for the actual frame. And to be honest, inserts feel better. The inserts on the other one, they had like a bulge in the back, but in the front, they were flush. There was nothing extra in the front. Well, I mean, it's got to go both ways, right? I mean, joking aside, like the rod bends. That has to flex on both sides. It was horrible on the other one comparatively. Now, are these inserts as good? I mean, how bad could they be? There isn't anything lower that's an insert than aluminum oxide. Like they are what they are. There's only a couple companies that make them. I'm betting this is the same kind of material exactly. Feels pretty slick, feels fine. I haven't abused it at all yet. Now, keep in mind, the finish on this rod is not nearly as pretty. The wrappings are nice, but they lack the artistry of the St. Croix, and the epoxy is not nearly as pretty. Pretty. None of this is epoxy. It's just roughed in. They did the wraps here and then epoxied over it, but they didn't epoxy across the top, across the middle here. This Lew's is a decal. It's not painted on and epoxied over. So, it is what it is. But for $29, it's about as sensitive and is going to do the same job. I'll save money for other stuff. I mean, it's that simple. it's not that I'm going to spend less on my fishing gear. It's that I'm going to spend it somewhere else because I didn't need to spend it on the rod. The reel, this is that Formula reel, Formula Limited Edition. I have a video coming next week on it because this week is the basics line video, part 2 / after the water kind of thing. So this will be next week, next Saturday. I really like it though. Spoiler alert, if I needed another reel, I would buy another one of these. I thought I was going to be returning this and buying something else, maybe putting in a little more money, up to going to an SLX or even an SLX MGL, all the way up to, I mean, maybe I end up with another Corrado K. I'm not bothering. I worked with this for 2 days on the water, and I got to be honest, after I got it set up and, got used to how I had to adjust the brakes for different lures, I don't have any more trouble using this than on the Corrado. The Corrado is nicer. It physically feels nicer. It's a cast a little further. It's a little better reel, right? I mean, much better reel. Let's be fair. But in terms of things like backlashes, in terms of just messing with me, on the water where the reel was interfering with my enjoyment, no problem. The biggest annoyance I had with this reel is that it's a right-hand retrieve, and I normally do a left-hand retrieve. So swapping hands and fiddling around like that, it was a learning experience for me, and it is what it is. They didn't have the left-hand retrieve, and I decided that it was worth learning. It was worth doing that and getting used to it. It's something I've been meaning to do for a while. I was just not willing to spend real money on a right-hand retrieve reel in case 3 months down the road I decide, you know what, this just is not for me at all. I'm done with this. You can't return the reel at that point, so you're stuck with it. And I didn't want to have committed real money to it. This was $49. Spoiler alert for the video. If you told me it was $100 and handed it to me to use, I would believe you. I've used reels that were $100. They were not that nice. They were not that easy to use. They didn't feel as good in the hand and had sharp edges that bit me and all sorts of other things. So it is what it is. I'm not going to complain. I'm pretty happy. I have not tried the rod yet, really. We're just going off appearance and fiddling around with it. This will be out on the water tomorrow, and we will see how it holds up. I'm going in the morning early, hoping to not have the sun in the camera, because you can only fish from one side of the bank in that spot, and hopefully catch something because the weather has warmed up enough, long enough. We were right on the cusp. I did some research into the water temperatures. We were right there, and the last 2 days have been pretty warm. Fish should have moved up. So we will see, but I'm hoping that I will be able to get some fish. It's been a while. So just a key item, if you're looking for that reel, and since nobody's watching this, nobody's looking for that reel, but if you're looking for that reel, it is this box, but in red, it says limited edition. They may not, if you go into the store, they may not even know they have it. They may literally think it's the older Formula reel, or just not even be aware it's come in yet. They literally put these on the shelf the night before when I got there. And the guy who put them on the shelf was the person who helped me, and he did not realize that there was something special about these yet. They didn't have a display out. It was all janky. The computer was like, yeah, we have a limited quantity of the left-hand retrieve. With Bass Pro, if you're not aware, a limited quantity means there might be one, maybe. Usually no. But they had a bunch of the left-hand or the right-hand retrieve, so. Okay. So we have a tackle. We are 20 minutes in and no one's watching. I gotta love it. We have the tackle warehouse order. Let me move my mic a little bit. the Civivi Brad Zinker bow. Still have not gotten a ton of use out of it. My life just has not needed a pocket knife lately. I don't know. Haven't been ordering from Amazon as much, you know. So, yeah, hopefully they didn't put a plastic up at the top. Okay, there's packaging. I was like, I dug a little deep there. But it glides right through that. It was like nothing. I've used it for lunches a few times. I really like it, but I don't feel comfortable saying, you know, hey, it's working great when I probably used it less than most guys use their pocket knife in a week. And I've had it for, we're going on over a month, right? Okay, you guys don't need to see that. By the way, this is something I really liked about Tackle Warehouse. If you've never shopped there, they give you all the return stuff and the shipping label in the box. Like, you don't have to fiddle around with it. You can literally, anything that's wrong is you're ready to return it right there. You've literally got the paperwork, the label, the box. You put it back in the box and you send it back. Okay. I'm trying to remember what all I got. So these are the grub tails, the twin tail. Oh, come on. It's a Strike King Rage Tail, twin tail grub, menace grub in Firecraw. Is that what they're calling it? Yeah, Firecraw. Basically, spring, you know, crawdad color. It's a dark orange, medium red kind of color. And I have these in white and, oh my God, green pumpkin. And I use them a lot. They hold up well. I use them a ton on jigs. I use them a ton on chatterbaits. They work really well. The only thing they don't do real well is go through grass because the tails are pretty good size and they flutter a lot. But even then, they're better than like a craw or anything with a bunch of appendages. I haven't noticed that the bandito bugs hang up any more than these. And I do use the bandito bugs a lot, but I like these better when I don't want the added bulk of the bandito. The bandito's got that wide body. This is just, you know, a bit of a bolt for the body and a tail. And I don't know. I've caught more bass with one of these on the end of a chatterbait in green pumpkin, not this. I've never had this color, than anything else. So, speaking of green pumpkin, Reactions Innovation Sweet Beaver in green pumpkin. What is this? 4-inch, 4.2 inch. These are green pumpkin red. Let me get one out. Maybe that won't glare. Sorry about the noise level. I just realized I was doing that right by the mic. And the tail comes apart. You can see how tough they are. But here we go. Get some light. So there's a little red in there. These guys, they don't have as much action as they look. They're pretty dead action. It kind of just flutters a little bit. But I found out about these from Tactical Bassin, and I got to agree, they're awesome. However, don't use them in cold water unless you want no action. They basically stiffen up and turn into a log. But yeah, I've been using the hematoma color for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. Really liked them. Had never bought any other colors, and had only needed the one pack. How many come in a pack? I can't remember. 10 pack, I think. I do not remember, but it's a fair number in a pack. It's not like you get 6 or something. and they hold up pretty well. If you don't keep taking it on and off the bait, and you're not getting mauled all the time. I've had a couple get torn up when bass short struck, or I had like large panfish chewing on it, but they couldn't get their mouth around the whole thing. So they basically were eating the tails on the way in. I'm like retrieving my bait, and they're chewing on the tails. And what can you do? Okay. I'll put this back. I want the other one of these. So these are why I put the order in the first place. So Z-Man Razor Shads. This is the Fire Croix, the Deal. I have no idea what the Deal is name. The Deal. And then a green pumpkin. I can't remember if it was anything special, just straight green pumpkin. So if you're not familiar with Z-Man baits, they're Elastec. It is not the same as most of the other baits on the market. Do not mix them. Do not put them into, like if you put the baits, into a regular tackle box, they will not be happy. If you put them into a Ziploc baggie, they will not be happy. If you put them into something that has even had a regular plastic in it, they will not be happy. So don't like throw this into your plastics pouch and think it's going to be okay. It will literally decompose. Leave them in their Z-Man packages, or use the Z-Man binder. Whatever you're going to do, don't play games with it. Bad things happen. To the point of, if I'm changing from a Z-Man plastic to something else, or vice versa, I get the old plastic off. I rinse that off. I make sure there's no residue, because it starts a chemical reaction. It's not good. These are hard to get. If you're looking for these, the Razor Shads, Tackle Warehouse still has most of them. Shop Carl's had at least a few of the colors. But these in particular, the red ones, were hard to get. Yeah, Fire Croix, still what they're calling it. Like those itches. They were hard to get, and I ended up. That was why I ordered from Tackle Warehouse instead of possibly somewhere else. Like, that was the deciding factor, was I could get everything I wanted at Tackle Warehouse, and my total came to enough that I was getting free shipping. Okay. Then some small Yamamoto Senkos. I want to do more wacky this year. I have not been doing a lot of wacky. I only have a couple stick bait style worms, and both are Guggen. I have, if I remember correctly, green pumpkin and white. And it's just not something I've done a lot of. And I have the hooks. I have, the right rod for it. Just never been on my radar as a primary thing to do. And I'm like, well, it's a good option, right? Like, you should have this in your arsenal. It's not hard or expensive to get into. So these are the short ones, the 4-inch. Yeah, 4-inch. Because most of the bass where I'm fishing are small. There are big bass in there, or at least they're supposed to be. There were. I don't know. I haven't seen any in like 6 months. Okay, not 6 months, but 4 months. So I figure the smaller ones make more sense. If I start seeing larger fish, if that becomes an issue, I'll get larger ones, whatever. But yeah, we have green pumpkin watermelon. I forgot that I did the watermelon one. And cinnamon black and purple flake. The reason I don't remember is because I literally went onto a forum for Texas fishing, for hill country fishing, and found a thread on what color Senko people were using around here in this area of the state in the spring. And these two most common colors people mentioned for the kind of water that I've got. My water is lightly stained to clear. Very rarely, mostly in the middle of summer and later when it gets more rainy, we get more muddy. But then I'll go to the white, or I'll go to the, I'll go get some black and blue or something, whatever. But I've actually never used the Yamamoto's. I've never used any of their stuff. I figured, let's give it a try, right? Then the wacky O-ring tool, because like I said, it's never been on my radar. I never did a lot of it. On the couple occasions I did it, I just put a wacky hook on and hooked it through the bait, and didn't catch anything. So I didn't find out, whether that was going to cost me a bait every time. So this is the first gen wacky tool. I mean, you slide the stick bait in, you roll the O-ring over it. I mean, nothing special, right? And then 2 different size O-rings, because I have 2 very different size baits. My Guggen lunkers are rather large compared to the Yamamoto's, and I wanted to make sure I had both sizes. This supposedly comes with 2 different sizes on here. But apparently, according to this, that's wrong. It comes with one size that fits 5 to 6 inch stick baits, which would work fine for my lunker logs, but I'm going to need these for the Yamamoto's, because these are 4 to 5 inch stick worms, 5 millimeter. These are 4 millimeter for finesse worms. We'll see. I'll play with both. You got to try it out and figure it out. And that was it. That was all I got. So these were the real key. Like, no joke. If I had been able to get these at Bass Pro, I probably would not have put in my order. I probably would have found everything else, some sort of substitute, something, passed it up. Waited till I eventually broke down and got a Shop Carl's membership again. Right now, I don't need enough stuff to justify it. And apparently they did decide that, no, you really have had a membership. You can't do a free trial. And yeah, I have a new address. I could use a different credit card and a different email address and play that game. Whatever. I'm not that guy. So until I can justify it in terms of how much I'm spending, the membership doesn't make sense. I will say that most likely if I buy a reel, again, something not bargain basement, most likely I'll do it through Shop Carl's if I don't buy it through the local Bass Pro. And the reason I'll do that is, if you do that as a member, you get a pretty significant credit. Either they give you a discount or they give you a credit. And if you spend $180 on a Corrado K, is it pouring down rain or something? No, it just sounded like it though. You might get like a $30 rebate, a $30 credit. Okay, $30 goes a long way toward covering the membership costs, and then there's the free shipping. That's another like $8 saved. And then for the next year, everything you order is free shipping and a discount. I mean, I don't hide it. I use a lot of Guggen baits. I don't have any problem with them. I don't like some of them. I like other ones, but yeah, they're relatively fragile. They're soft. Their competitors that are equally soft are fragile. If you buy them full retail, they're expensive. Yeah, so are lots of other things. These aren't exactly cheap. These aren't exactly cheap. These aren't cheap. The Guggen baits at Shop Carl's are actually pretty affordable compared to the competition. They're not that much more or less. So yeah, I don't worry about it. $1 one way or the other on a pack of baits is not, it's not that high on my radar. Like, I'm not rich, but if that's what's working for me, why would I stress over that? So yeah, mainly, honestly, I use the saucy swimmers because they're competitive with the other items on the market that are like them. There are similar objects that are not like them. Don't confuse all those swim bait things, all those tails, as being the same. Really? Really? I don't even have a viewer, and you get to post your spam. Could you contribute some way, somehow? Yeah. I'll take one of these out of the package. So these come in the clamshell, and it's not the same as the Guggen one. It's a little different, but it's awful similar. So, by the way, these are not the KVD specific Strike King things, but they do have the coffee scent thing. Yeah, I mean, it's not going to focus, but at least it gives you an idea of the color, right? And those tails, I mean, they flutter pretty well under the water. I've never had any issue with these not giving good action. They're not crazy, but they don't throw your lure around. What they do is they move around, like the tails are fluttering, giving action without it throwing the whole bait around. So I use these when what I don't want is, like, if I've got a chatterbait, I don't want it throwing it back and forth, because that messes up the chatterbait. I mean, yeah, right now, actually, my chatterbait has a saucy swimmer on it, or it might be an actual Kitech on there, which would be a mistake because I don't want a Kitech on there. But I think it's a saucy swimmer. Problem is, I've got saucy swimmers and Kitechs in the same general shade, and I can never remember which one's which. So what else we got? The video for Tuesday is going to be on scope turrets and the differences between capped, uncapped, the different kind of zero stop thing and resetables, different reticles, and why you might want one or the other. A little bit about zeroing for hunting versus zeroing for competition. It's kind of an all over the place video, and I think by the time I edit it down, it's going to be pretty short, to be honest. I do try to keep the videos. I don't know if people are aware of this. I try to keep the videos long enough that if I monetize, they're long enough to get a second ad, because YouTube will put the ad at the beginning, right? Almost always. And if you are short, you don't get a second ad. And now I know from a viewer's perspective that no ad, no middle ad is nice, right? Well, from the content provider's perspective, if you make a video that's just a shade too short to get that second ad, you just missed out on a lot of potential income. And I mean, in my case, at my size, I'm missing out on a penny total, maybe. But you get bigger, people are watching your older videos. The goal is to have the videos be long enough for a second ad in the middle, and to have the content get the person to that ad. You don't want people bailing out before that ad. You lose a lot of people in the first 30 seconds. But if they've actually watched the video, you don't want them bailing before that second ad. It's just basic economics. That is why YouTube videos from people that are monetized and doing this to make money will be like 8 to 9 minutes or long form. Because if you're 6 or 7 minutes, you very often don't get another ad. You're just too short. If you're like 13 minutes, you might get a third ad, you might not. But usually by the time you go that long, it doesn't matter. If somebody's still watching at that point, they're going to watch as long as the video runs, right? They probably walked away. Or they're like me, where I have certain people that I watch, and even if I don't care, even if the video is one I'm like, I just let it play. I'm supporting that content provider. I am helping them with the algorithm. And I'll do something on my phone. I'll do something else on my computer, whatever it is. I'll go get a snack. But it helps the YouTube algorithm say, people care about this video. Let me show this to other people. Because if this audience likes it, maybe that audience will too. So that's why a lot of content providers run a little longer than you might think they should. If you're like, that was 3 minutes worth of content, why did you drag it out? Why is there this long intro and this long outro and this, extra fluff? That's why. Because they had a 6-minute video and wanted enough content to get to a 9-minute video. And the exact line you have to cross changes. That's why I say, they usually go to like 9, because it's somewhere in that 7 to 9 range. YouTube changes it up. You never know. So that is it. I'm going to get on with my night. I'm trying to go to bed early tonight because I want to go fishing in the morning. And I don't have any meetings scheduled. I don't have anything on my radar for tomorrow other than going fishing in the morning, early. We'll see how early, but early. And then I'm taking the Mojo Bass. Excuse me. I stopped my caffeine intake early today. Taking the Mojo Bass back to Bass Pro, and didn't want to make it look like I was missing a finger there, and getting money back. I may end up spending some of it there anyway. I still have a few things I'm looking for, but I don't need to spend $150 on a rod that in practice didn't impress me. If only a couple things had been different on it, I would be like, okay. But to be honest, I bought it and the reel to do the video and to try something out with no intention of caring. Like, I wasn't planning to keep it. I figured I would keep the rod because I figured I would like the rod. And I would just change out the reel, and that would be the rod that I was doing this on, and that would make it worthwhile for me. Just in terms of, like, I didn't need another rod, but I needed a third setup to do this testing. And if I'm going to have a third setup, I might as well like it, right? Well, I didn't like the rod. Nothing wrong with it. Like I said, it was very well made. I just didn't think it was worth $150 to me. And I found a dirt cheap rod that I think is going to work just fine. If I change my mind on that, I'll buy something else. Most likely, to be honest, I will buy the Bass Pro Carbon Light 2 version, the same thing I've got for my other rod in the crankbait version. I mean, it is what it is. I do need to shuffle the reels around because I think that there are better options for which reel goes on which rod. I was not yawning until I got into this. But we'll see. We'll see. And yes, I think this looks as stupid as you probably do. I'm already letting it grow back. I shaved yesterday. And today I shaved underneath and up here, didn't shave here, didn't shave here. And we're letting it grow back. Hopefully by the time next live comes around, it'll be at least fuzzy and visible, not just, stubbly. My beard is weird. Sometimes it grows quick, sometimes it doesn't. So take care, have fun, stay safe. Good night, everybody who's not watching. And Take it easy.